This business podcast, the Two Business Guys Mastermind, uncovers for you secrets and share tips and tricks to entrepreneurship as they mastermind on how to have startup, operational, and overall business success so that you can go on to get better results. Enjoy. All of us have good ideas. At least that's what we think. Listen in as the Two Business Guys Mastermind on what every entrepreneur should do before turning that idea into a business. Enjoy.
All right.
So good morning, my brother here. Hey, we are back. The two guys are masterminding today. We're going to do things a little bit differently. Notice that I will probably be on the end of answering questions, because you notice, John, I typically will ask him a question and then we kind of riff on things. I think John's going to ask me some questions today, and we've got about we got a list of them. So you are in for a good show. We're going to be talking today about, John, what are we going to be talking about today?
We're going to talk about what you should know before you open a business. And yes. I did an interview on this earlier in the week. But I wanted to, when I was in the midst of the interview, I thought to myself, well, wouldn't it be nice to interview an entrepreneur from that space instead of someone who is a coach? But Randy, you hold both of those hats.
Sure.
But from the entrepreneur standpoint, today, I want you to solely be wearing that cap.
That's nice. Wow, interesting. So what the first question, all right, what should we be thinking about? What should we be thinking about before we start this business, right? So I would assume that, hey, we got an idea. Something popped into your head, you're in the shower and you thought, man, this is a good idea. And isn't it interesting how we think our idea, because we birthed it, is the best idea ever. But not always the case. So here's one of the top things that I think people miss out on and entrepreneurs miss out on when they come up with this great idea. Great to them. And that is, can I validate it? Can I take this kernel of an idea and walk it somewhere and someone says, hey, that's a good idea. I'd like to walk it another space, another place, another mile. So we got to get our idea out there and see if anybody will respond to it the way we think they should. And that's where I think what happens to entrepreneurs is they get all frothy in the mouth and start doing things that don't have anything to do with the validation of that kernel of an idea, right? We start building business cards. We start doing all the things that have nothing to do with, can I attract a customer? So here's the validation of the idea. When you have an idea, ask yourself this question. Will anybody pay me for this? Heck, will anybody even, say that this is a good idea like I think it? So how do you do that? Well, first things first, we got to take it to somebody. We got to put it in front of them. It's not even ready all the time. But if we can take a little bit of it, have that big idea and start in a small space and say, what do you think about this? One of the best tools to use is using surveys. Mm-hmm. Hey, what do you think about this? Now, what we typically find is that entrepreneurs are scared. They don't want to put their idea out there. Somebody might steal it. Somebody else might have, an ideation and go, oh, that was the last piece. Thank you very much. Well, guess what? That's a part of the validation process. Because if you think that your idea is going to be the only thing, right, only thing going, that it's not the last piece, well, you're going to fool yourself. You might be the last piece of somebody else's already formed idea, somebody that's already got money, but you got to put it out there to see if it works at all. So that's one of the things that I recommend is to put it out there. Start doing surveys, start asking questions around this idea. Now, this is, again, before you start it, before you get going, before the motors start going, before money gets spent on anything, validate the idea. Typically 2 to 3 to 4 people.
So in regards to that, Randy, a lot of entrepreneurs, like you said, were hesitant about taking our idea to the public. So we tend to go to individuals that we're comfortable with, like our
Mm.
family members. Who do you recommend that we have? Because I could hand a survey out to, my family members, and it be have much different results than handing it out to perfect strangers. So how would you go about recommending that someone goes through this validation process?
Yeah, that's a good one. I love that, bro. I think it was Rob Fitzpatrick. I want to say, I think his name. He wrote the book called The Mom Test, and he says, well, the mom, she loves you. So when you bring her an idea, she's gonna say, well, I love him, so I love her. Of course, it's a good idea. Yes, honey, that's
Mhm,
great. So it sometimes has to do with who are you asking and how.
mhm,
Right? You can still ask your friends and family, but you got to go a little bit further. You ask yourself a different kind of question, and you ask them a different kind of question, right? The question isn't, hey, do you think this is a good idea? The question becomes, can I get some money for this?
mm,
In
mm,
other words, will they pay you? If your friends say, this is an interesting idea, I'd pay $4 for that, then you might be onto something. So sometimes that validation comes with that 2, 3 to 4 people, right? It comes in, hey, look, I got this idea. It's $3, it's $4, it's $400. What do you think about it? It may not even be fully formed, but it's before you're starting. Will somebody go, I think so much of that idea that I'd put a down payment on it. I'd
mm, mm,
prepay. Some of the things that I suggest to entrepreneurs is that they go out and get pre-sales.
mm, mm,
It doesn't matter if it's a book, it doesn't matter what it is. You get it out there and people say, hey, you know what? I'd wait for that. In fact, I'd put a down payment on that. So sometimes we have to try to get sales. That's one of the best validators, right? For something that isn't even already formed, right? Try to get email signups. Try to get people to come over to the space and say, I'll wait. These kind of things suggest that they may have a hunger for it. They may have an interest for it, right? And then even if they know you, like you, trust you, they're your friends. If your friends will give you money on it, you might be onto something. So that's one of the things that I certainly recommend that entrepreneurs pursue as quick as that idea comes, so that they can start asking themselves, should I put extra money in it?
mm.
Should I do the next step stuff? And of course, the next step stuff is we got to now put it in front of potential customers, right? And see if they will help validate the idea too.
So let's say you have a really good idea and you want to take it, you want to test it out, but you're not a salesperson. You're not comfortable with that. And I've sat across from individuals that have fantastic ideas. They can't pitch it to save their lives because that's just they're not comfortable with that. But they're brilliant. What would you suggest to those individuals who maybe are shy, or maybe that just don't have that gift of
Mhm.
sales? What would you suggest they do?
Yeah, and that's not terribly unusual for founders and starters of things, but it is one of those big questions that you have to ask yourself, right? You say, hey, listen, I think what I have is a good idea. Maybe a couple of people have given me a couple of bucks on it. And then as you're doing a kind of a you almost have to do a self-assessment, right? A know your strengths moment, if you will.
Mm,
And if you're not the person that can forward the idea, then you have to do what Wozniak and Jobs did.
mm,
Wozniak says, I can build anything, but I better have that guy selling it. I
mhm,
better have that girl selling it. Why? Because they will do it better.
mm,
And
mm,
that becomes one of those, this is a hard moment for people. Oftentimes, this becomes a hard moment for people simply because they know and are fearful of what they don't bring to the table. But it's not to suggest that they can't go get someone who brings that skill set they don't have,
mm,
right? Now, that's a self-assessment. And again, you don't want people into your space all the time. You got your idea. You don't want, too many people, getting their eyeballs on it. We understand that. But at the same time, if you know that this thing will eventually need to be sold, and it will, this is where you say, who can I bring on?
mhm,
Right now, this is, again, we're at that stage where you're saying, I really don't have it going yet. I just have a kernel of an idea. Maybe I've tested it out a little bit. I see that there's a potential space for the market in the market. Now we got to go get a business development person, right? There's somebody that says, hey, listen, is this an idea? Can I get them excited? Can I get them on board? All right. Can my idea be strong enough that it attracts someone that says, you know what, I'd like to try to sell that. Can we do something? You know what I mean? So now you then have some things to think about. So even as you're sitting there with your idea, you know, and you're saying, okay, I'm going to put up the surveys out. I'm going to try to test it. I'm going to validate it. Now I'm going to see if I can bring someone in that says, I see your vision. I see this thing that you built. And I noticed out there that there might be a gap in the marketplace. So then that means you're surrounding yourself with somebody or somebodies, right? And now in this day and age, we can find some somebodies. You know, we can pull it from our pool of entrepreneurs. We can pull it from technical spaces. We can pull it from colleges. We can pull it from or assemble a team together, right? That says, hey, let's try to go out there and present it in a way that people might, again, line up and be ready for it to release because they see it too. Can somebody articulate it for you? You got it. It's up here, right? It may have been birthed in the shower. It may have been sketched out on your tabletop. But now can you give it to somebody and they go, hey, what do you think about this, customers? And in fact, let me tell you a little bit more because they have that gift.
Yes.
That is one of the critical things. We have to find people that have the gifts that we don't know. That doesn't come without its potential problems. And I'll tell you, this is an honest moment. When you wish you had the gift of gab, and you see someone with the gift of gab, there's a degree of envy you have. Can you put aside that envy? Can you put aside that, man, you know what? I love what they do, but they're not me. They're not technical. They don't really do anything, right? And I think there was a moment in when I watched the Jobs movie where Wozniak's father was like, what does he do? Right? Well, he sells stuff. He presents things. If it weren't for him, I'd probably have an idea in a box that could probably work, maybe a couple of hundred in sales, but I wouldn't have thousands of people getting behind it. That's where you have to say to yourself, I'll put aside my feelings about what I don't have, go assemble those pieces, and then let them do what they do well and do everything I can to maintain my feelings about it.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. So I'm at that space. I've got validation from individuals. Do I worry about who my competition or would be in that space that I'm looking at going into? Do I investigate that at all, or?
That's a funny thing, isn't it? It's like we assume that customers and competition are just waiting on our great idea. Competition is not going to sit by and watch you enter their space. That's not their job, right? Their job is not to literally let you come in with your great idea and take money out of their mouth,
right?
Or take sales out of their pipeline, to take the potential, I should say, food out of the mouth, at the money from whatever they have out there, right? Here's something, and this is what we assume, right? That our great idea is going to just disrupt. Well, do you want it to disrupt? Do you really want it to disrupt? Because that means that arrows, that means you just put a target on you, your company, your new idea, right? From someone that says, you know what, we've got way more money, we've got smarter people, we've got a team. Competition is not just going to sit by and wait for you to just do what you do in their space, right? Or they may see that good idea and go, couldn't we incorporate that? But the question becomes, can you articulate it in a way? And this is where when I'm talking to an entrepreneur and I'm saying, okay, that's why it's really good to have some other people that you're talking with. That's why, we do what we do here at the Two Business Guys Mastermind, because we mastermind on things. We want to, inform you. We want to warn you. We want to, give you some good ideas, some tips. And on today, this is one of those other moments, right? So your competition is just waiting for you to make a mistake, right? I think about the Salesforce story and how they kind of got started. And, They had the entrenched traditional people that were, selling software a certain way. They weren't selling software as a service, right? It was a market that was, largely grown up by Salesforce. Salesforce kind of thought, well, we can do this a different way. We believe that we can present this piece of material, this software, in a different model. And the bigs were going, yeah. At first, they didn't worry. And then they started seeing that there was erosion in their marketplace because the people that they had been traditionally going after stayed a minute until they saw that, wait a minute, this might be a more cost-effective way to do something. Now, the bigs didn't just wait around, but by the time they could react, Salesforce had such a momentum, right? They had given such utility and such value in what they were offering. Sales or software as a service, the SaaS movement. We're just going to charge you for what you use. We're not going to be bringing hordes of people and take months to, put your software in and then, come in with these big packages. No, whatever you use, then you pay for that. Mm-hmm. Right? And the bigs were like, oh my gosh. And then one of the things that typically happens is that you try to buy that company, right? You say, hey, wait a minute. And I'm sure that happened. Right? I'm sure there was a moment where the founder of Salesforce was presented with a check. But he said to himself, man, you know what? I don't believe that I should go in this direction. And he grew into a huge company. And then, of course, competition caught up. But now you've got momentum. You got the customers. You've provided a whole different model to the marketplace that has eroded your competition's marketplace. That don't mean they're not going to be mad. That don't mean they're not going to be trying to knock you off the block. That's their job. They're bullies, right? Big companies can be bullies sometimes, and they got money to be bullies. They got people smarter than you sometimes, but sometimes you get some of these people that go, I want to be a part of that. They got great vision. They got great energy. They're in the marketplace doing some stuff that I've been thinking about for a long time. Maybe I can grow with them. Maybe you now are able to utilize the people that want to peel off, come over to your company. And what you've just done is because of a good idea, because you've done some validation, because you've gone out there and maybe thought about a couple of things, got some people that can articulate it. Now the competition's people are coming over to your space. That becomes a powerful moment when you can pull somebody from a company making a really good salary because they have and see the vision of where you're going, and they can see that, it's not going to be long before my company's out of business. Mm-hmm. I wonder about this, John. I really do. Mm-hmm. I wonder how many executives from Blockbuster, right, went over to this upstart Netflix. I'm really curious about that, and we read about it sometimes when we hear like Elon Musk went over and got some engineers from this area, right? How many people says, I think this is something. And I see that we are not going to be long for this space.
Well, actually, Amazon was known to be big in this space because they didn't have the supply chain expertise when they were starting out. So they were pulling people from Walmart. Top executives from Walmart were leaving. And Walmart was,
the supply,
supply
chain king.
So yeah, you're leaving this big company who pretty much has the market and going to an upstart, and they're stealing your best people. So it is that. So you might not necessarily be there now, but it doesn't mean that you can't get there.
Yeah, and doesn't that suggest something to you though, as you think about that, right? And guys, as you're listening to this, think about that for a minute, right? That tells you that you may not need to be the only thinker in this group or this idea, to forward your idea, to take it to another level. There are people out there that can do where you're trying to go. And this is kind of to the point, John, earlier we were talking about when you had the vision for your company and the brand, and you sent over, hey, here's kind of my big idea, right? And I see how how John works. This is how John works, guys. I'm gonna give you guys a little bit of an insight. Like, what do you think about that? Right. And then you kind of come in and go, oh yeah, here's some ideas, right? So all along, and then eventually John's gonna say, would you like to be a part of that? Would you like to run that division? But you see, just with somebody might see a vision and they see where you're going with something and they go, wow, I really like that. There's energy here. I can see the overall idea. I can see the kind of trajectory. I see where it's kind of going, the steps that you're taking to walk it, right? And if you're not doing that, you should have somebody on your staff that says, I'll poke holes in that idea because it's not fleshed out well enough, right? And that's one of the other past validation stage is you always should have, now don't get me wrong, you should have positive people in your life, but you should have a negative Nelly on the group. I kid you not. That's the defense person. That's the person that's over there going, not going to work. Here's why. And then now your response is, let me prove to the negative Nelly that it will. Mm-hmm. Right? That's their job. Now, don't get me wrong, not to the point where it stifles you and they're always, just killing an idea, not even trying it. They're basically saying, I'm the marketplace. I'm competition. I'm devil's advocate. And as such, I should be constantly telling you there's a hole in it. Here's where it's going to go wrong. And your job is to fill it. Mm-hmm. That's one of the, now having that person in the group or having a mastermind group or having whatever it is that you bring together that says, yeah, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
When you're saying
really in your pocket. Yeah.
When you're saying this, it's like, I think I'm I look at my life, and one of the individuals that speaks the most wisdom in my life, he's not a negative Nelly, but he's the person that is going to ask the tough questions.
Yeah.
That make you think, that, and it makes you a better person. It makes you a better entrepreneur. But like you said, we need somebody who challenges us. And sometimes if we surround ourselves by just yes people, they're too busy trying to please us, and we never become better. We never reach our full potential.
And you said something key. I love, this sounds weird. This may sound a little strange. I have a love-hate relationship with rejection. Right? On one hand, it's like, oh my gosh, I've been rejected. Why? But if you're not, that means if you're not getting rejected somewhere, somehow, you're not trying enough. You're not stretching yourself. You're not going into areas that maybe you have no business being in, right? To be told, no, you're not good enough. Because it does hit the center. That's the love-hate part, right? I'll give you an example. Just something today. I was rejected on, it was a platform that I was saying, hey, I'd like to be a part of this platform. I'd like to do some work on this platform. And they said, no. I was like, no, what do you mean? I've written 6 books. I got, 2 or 3 podcasts. I'm kind of a big deal, right? And they said no. And I mean, at first I was in my feelings. And I thought, man, this is not good, right? And then I just sent them a letter. I sent a thank you for this letter. It's humbling. A rejection letter after all the stuff that I've done. Are you kidding me? Now, I could have been sitting in my feelings and going, I'm going to run away from this because this is a painful moment. But guess what? That's what competition is going to do. Competition is going to say, hey, wait a minute. No to you in your new idea. No to that, we don't want you in here. They're going to throw the full weight of not letting you into that space because, again, you're going to be taking food out of their mouth, right? You're going to be getting in and innovating in their space. And they thought they may have been the king and queens in this particular space. They're going to try to say no to you. But sometimes you thank them, you ask, how can I get better? And this is what I did. I sent a letter. I sent a little note back. Thank you for saying no. Mm-hmm. Now tell me, what do I need to do? What did I miss? Right? And you had to do a couple of, in this particular case, I had to send in some samples, to kind of, they see if it fits with what they were doing. And it says, no, we, thank you for your interest, but no. It's like, oh my gosh, you know what? And I got this information this morning. So again, thank you. Appreciate it. Tell me what areas I need to get better in. Just to your point, right?
Mhm.
Having those negative Nellies or having the people that will give you the truth, it's going to be good for you. It's going to not only, make you work a little harder, but it's going to make you ask extra questions. It should at least. Now you can sit there and go, well, I didn't want to write for them anywhere. I didn't want to do this. And you can do all that kind of stuff. But if you go back into and you get a little bit of feedback from them, right? It doesn't matter if it's a job interview. This could go not just this could go past business. It could go into personal life, right? You're asking someone on a date, they say no. Why is that? Well, I like somebody taller, or I like somebody what? Oh, okay. Well, I don't qualify, right?
Mhm.
But it's just that you just don't do it for me, right? If you can get feedback, you can find out. You can go back into the lab and fix stuff. That's why I talk about the validation, the idea, the validating it, getting told no first. So you can go, maybe my idea wasn't ready, wasn't fully formed. Maybe they already have an alternative and my idea doesn't excite them enough. And to your point, that's where again you're wrapping around, bringing somebody in that can articulate it, that can get people excited, right? Do you have the person that you have to your left or right? Are they like you? Probably shouldn't be. They
Mm.
should be polar opposites in terms of you may be quiet and they just may be, you know, out there like you wouldn't believe. That's who you need to be out there presenting your item, getting people excited, and hopefully not pissing, customers off and all that kind of stuff. But out there doing that stuff that you don't have while you do the stuff that you've got. That help a little bit?
Absolutely. So how how do I know if there is a customer base? Yeah, I sold, I've done a couple hundred pre-orders, but in reality, when I look at that, I can't make a living off of that.
Yeah.
So how do I know that there is enough business, that there is enough customer interest in what I'm proposing to do, that I should go all in?
Yeah, see that's the $1 million question. Is it, do I have enough customers to support this idea? Well, again, these are some of the things that you're kind of thinking about as you're getting ready to present your idea. Because again, before you start putting money into that thing, you got to know that, wait a minute, there's a market out there. One of the best ways is to see where the competition is,
Mm, mm,
right? See where advertising is. What do they seem to be advertising a lot of? Huh. Why is that? That's because somebody is out there maybe doing the work for you. Right? We talk about that sometimes in some of our earlier podcasts. We've talked about, hey, look, McDonald's will go where Burger King went, or vice versa. Because somebody's already did the market research. There's enough people on this street to support a burger chain.
mhm.
So the other one does all the work. The other one comes along and says, we got a great brand. We're going to go across the street. And it would be great if like the railroads used to do, they would buy tranches of land, right? Nobody could go left or right of them
Mhm.
unless they said so, right? Whereas burger chains don't always buy the spot across the street, right? But that becomes your opportunity. If you're saying competition suggests market, and that's just like that. Competition suggests there's a market.
Mm.
So when you're in the validation of your idea, you're not necessarily validating the fact that somebody has this product. You're validating whether you can get in with your approach, with your price point, with what you offer, and get into and make inroads into the competition. But the competition tells you if there's a marketplace. I'm like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. Sometimes people that are first in the marketplace don't make the money, right? They're like
Yep.
pawns on the chessboard. They move first, but they get killed first sometimes, right? They typically don't make it to the end of the board, right? But you had to make a move. You had to kind of present. And that's where I think is where the magic is. The magic is in making that first move, is presenting, your thing, seeing if, somebody moves against you, and then say, competition's coming. That means I am a threat. That's another idea validator. Does competition blow you off or try to blow you up? right? And if they try to blow you up, that means they see something in what you have. If they try to buy you, and you may be like, wait a minute, trying to buy me already? I'm not even started. Well, you never know when someone sees a good idea coming. Like we were talking earlier, John, we were talking about the parking app that's coming to Grand Rapids. Now that's going to make a difference to the big, and there's typically one or two names that's the big in parking spaces in Grand Rapids, Michigan. So this new company comes and says, hey, if you got an extra space, we'll pay you. We got an app. You can pay people to park there. I thought, brilliant, brilliant. Now the bigs should have bought them or should try quickly, partner, something. Because if you're in the parking business and you may think, hey, wait a minute, they're not going to affect my deal. Well, you got people out there that's saying, hey, wait a minute, I need to make some money, man. I'm broke. This is pandemic time. We don't got any money, but I got a parking spot. I got a home that has a little bit of a backyard. So heck yeah, I'll take a couple of cars. I'll even wash them for you. Because I remember when I thought about, of course, this wasn't my idea, but one of the things I thought, wouldn't it be great if you can have people that park their cars and this is the extra service that you provide. You'll wash them for them. So now they come out to a clean car. Are you kidding me? I parked. I paid a little premium to park in somebody's backyard. They watched the car for me and they washed the car for me. Hey, I know that the people down at Ellis or whomever, they're not doing that. I come out, my car's still dirty. I mean, it's one of those things where you say, hey, I got an idea. Let me put it out there. And then other people come and say, hey, I got something that might help be ancillary or run aside your idea that might help. Let's think about this. Cell phone cases, cell phone accessories, right? The little pop-up. All of these things happen because one thing happened. Right? Now, if you can assemble those people beforehand, think about that. You're in the validation of the idea. And you see other adjacent or ancillary businesses and you go, I think we're going to probably need this in order for this to work. So I might have a conversation with them long before you start. Hey, if I started this, is there something that you can maybe, not giving them the idea totally, but just kind of going, wait a minute, I got support, where the other companies may not have been thinking about this. Competition hadn't thought about that. But the fact is, competition showed you that there is a market. But you can go into that market and add some extra value, not just with your idea, but with what else you can bring to the idea that helps other businesses make money. Right? And this, oh man, I had this idea once, man, that said, or a piece of writing, and I wrote it down years ago, and it says, does your business create business? Not sales, not just sales, but does it help other businesses make money too? Now you enter into a market and these other businesses don't want you to go away because you're providing business for them.
Think about the auto industry and oil filters and pretty much anything you want, car for air fresheners. And I mean, there's so many, even filling stations and car washes and detailing and people who tint windows for cars. There's so many things that are ancillary to the actual car that depend on a vehicle.
Right. Man, I tell you, one of the things I thought about Uber, right? When I saw Uber coming, I knew it was over for cabs. I just knew it. But okay, and I literally, it was one of those things where he says, I should be having conversations with the cab industry right now. But I just didn't, I didn't feel confident. I didn't think that I was a voice that I could even, but if I were full cab companies, I would have immediately adjusted my business model to say, wait a minute, we take people now. Can we take anything else? Packages? Absolutely. They've got this sewn up. They have come into our market and they've disrupted it. Well, what cab drivers and cab companies started doing was complaining. You got to started trying regulation. You got to get rid of them. They tried to regulate them out of business. But when I says, anytime you have a component where it's adding, again, other business into people's pocketbooks, it's going to be tough to get rid of them. Let's see if I got this right. I can take an Uber and I can drive for them. I can take a lift and I can drive for them. Wait, that just makes, I can use this brand new car that I got, right? That I may not be able to afford it and be in the higher echelon of the Ubers and Lyfts. Absolutely. I knew that there was going to be way too much power than to have this old raggedy cab come up, smelling like whatever, not looking great, treating you bad, not talking to you right, right? Taking me places because they're the only game in town. Now think about this. If cab drivers would have associated, gotten together and says, hey, what else can we do? Because they are coming in, interrupting, disrupting our deal. Can we, spruce up our cabs to say, hey, we are a cab company that will take your packages somewhere? They could have got in on that space. Were they the kind of opportunity where they could have said, hey, you know what? We've got a special cab that's beautiful, that's clean, that all it does is take food places. What did they do? Kept complaining, kept complaining, kept complaining. And then Uber Eats happened and went to $1 billion in no time flat. And then you start seeing other competition come in and go, they created a company. That means there's a market for it. Came in and says, well, we can deliver stuff too. Next thing you know, people with their cars are saying, hey, it's the same model as Uber. We're just delivering food. We're delivering groceries. We're adding utility back to people's lives, giving them time back. You see, one thing started and a whole bunch of other industries spawned off of it. Why you had somebody else that had total 100% market share, if you will, are complaining. Competition is good, right? Tells you that there's a market. Can you now bring in all of these other forces that help you make other companies money, give people a chance to make money, and then while you make money too? That becomes one of the big questions.
So I'm Randy, and
I can't hear you, John.
Can you hear me now?
Yep. There we go.
So I'm Randy, and I'm thinking I've got a really good recipe for soda. I've been making this soda for my family for a few years. Everybody loves it. I know the public would love it, but how do I reach the public? Because like you said, you that may not be my gift. I might have to bring in a salesperson, but how do I strategically get like a cult following, like a Pepsi or a Coca-Cola, where they just have attracted such a mass following that it's hard to penetrate that?
That kind of reminds me, John, of how in the heck did water get so popular? Right? It's like, wait a minute, it's water. Well, somebody came up and says, no, it's smart water. Smart water? Yeah, we got a little something in there that helps you be smarter. Oh, you're kidding me. And then put it on the bottle. Right? Somebody says, well, I'll put water in a box. They went opposite. Boxed water. It's like, yes, same thing. Right? So here it is with your idea. And if it were a soda, somebody comes out and says, we have some of the same ingredients. Yeah, but we're going to make our potential customers a center. We're going to put real people on our cover. Jones Soda. And you're going, really? Yeah. Competition, the bigs are out there. Maybe I won't topple the bigs because, well, they've got tons and tons of marketing. But that's not to suggest that I can't come out with my own little brand that does a different thing, that excites people in a different way, that engages them differently. And then they won on marketing. Can I come out and do something? Dollar Shave Club. Can I do some Dollar Shave Club? These funny commercials. And the bigs were going, get out of here. Nobody's going to pay $1 for and then people started buying. They started getting a subscription package, a new way to sell it. Hey, we're going to send these to you every month. You're using them every day. So, don't sit there and try to save that shave because it costs you a lot of money. Throw it out. Why? Because you got a package of them coming next month. Right? And then they use the disposable shaving market. They use brilliant marketing and they made an inroad. Same with Jones Soda. Same with the water. Right now you got all kinds of different water. Alkaline water. We have a little, way we do this thing, make it more alkaline. We have, and then you say, wait a minute, who would be interested in buying me? Now, Coke says, hey, we're buying somebody's water. Right? And you get the bigs that come in and go, we can try to make it ourselves, but they already have momentum. And that's sometimes what you may search out for. You may search out for that company that comes in and says, we don't want to try to compete because, this big old ship can't turn on in that fast, but you're a small little lifeboat that we can bring on the big ship. And you go, hey, this is what this lifeboat's going to cost you. Your little company could then attract the attention because you started off with just an idea. You went out there kind of validated. People started liking it. And you says, can I outmarket them? Can I do this in a different way? Now they got more money than you, right? They could have at some point crushed you, but they didn't see you coming until you had a nice little following. I love what Seth Godin talks about all the time. He says, hey, listen, all you need is a little band of folks that dig your stuff. And be okay with that band of folks that dig your stuff. But you got to be brave enough to ship it, brave enough to put it out there. That becomes the deal, right? And if you get told no, like we were talking at the top of the hour, hey, look, I'm getting told no. I'm trying to get more no's. And it does, and trust me, yes, it does hurt. Yes, it does affect your self-confidence to a degree. But you have to kind of push through the self-confidence issue and say, but I have to continue to create, because you never know. You never know when one of the ideas that you push out there will hit. And we have to be agnostic about what we're putting out there. We have to have a belief that what we're putting out there is going to help somebody. And that, biggest of all is that it's in us. It's been designed and divined, and we've got to put it out there because that idea was given to me, but not just to you. Right? God gives it to, whoever you pray to. They give it to not only you, but they says, well, I'm going to give it to 5 people till the first one wins. And you're looking at your idea going, I had that idea back in 2006. Yep, but you didn't move on it. You were too busy, whatever. And you got to go, okay, I got hundreds of others, and be okay with that.
So Randy, I'm going to go off of, I'm going to take a detour from the questions because we're running a little short on time, but there's a couple questions that I want to make sure that we don't miss for the entrepreneurs who are listening in. What has been the biggest struggle for yourself as an entrepreneur that you faced?
Wow, that's a good one. It's something that I literally just addressed recently. Focus. As an entrepreneur, new shiny thing syndrome is real. And I'm telling you, focus. And it is in my belief that we have within us the capability to get stuff done. But do we have the focus? Do we have the drive? Do we have the motivation? Can we take the arrows until we succeed? So focus. I did this thing called if you ever heard of it, this is kind of hot thing going around called Dopamine Detox. Have you heard of Dopamine Detox?
I haven't.
All right, okay, entrepreneurs out there, if you're listening for the first time and you heard Dopamine Detox, oh my gosh, let me tell you how powerful this is. And I've been asking people, so as I start something, try something, I'm really into the immersive part of it, right? I says, okay, Randy, focus is really it's getting in your way. You have ideas after ideas after ideas, yet, and you might start 3 or 4 of them, finish, maybe a good quarter, but you could have finished half of them. You could have improved that finish rate, but for lack of focus. Something new and shiny came along and you started that one before you finished this one. So what is it? I started asking the deep questions. All right, I need to start getting up earlier. These are some of the problems that, you have to now face, address, and be honest about. Can I pull this off alone, myself, What else do I need? Right. So, and one thing was I needed to focus. So I did a detox. Dopamine detox suggests that you got so many things flying around. You got so many things that you're looking at YouTube. Anything that gives you pleasure releases a bit of dopamine. Boom. And because eventually dopamine is released so much, you kind of got you get the meh. Things don't excite you again. They're not new because dopamine's always being released. You're always doing these short little things, whatever these attention things, taking your attention away. Now, we've heard that because we've told our kids that stop watching so much TV. Stop doing this because it's giving you the pleasure centers, constant streams of dopamine, and eventually your body gets resistant. It's like insulin resistance. It's kind of what I said. It's like insulin resistance. We eat so much, and eventually your body goes, man, I'm tired. I'm worn out. I've released insulin. So I'm worn out now, right? And then we have to do a detox. We have to do intermittent fasting. We have to get ourselves away. So in the dopamine detox, you take a day off, right? And I hear that, the folks over in Silicon Valley, if you YouTube it, there are tons and tons of things that'll come up on dopamine detox. Some really good stuff. I went on and I says, I need to dopamine. I need to detox. I need to take time away. And this is what you have to do. Take a day of doing nothing. That's the detox. So that your mind is like, and the guy that I was, listening to on YouTube was talking about, it's like a focus is like a muscle. You got to build it. Right. And doing this detox is building it. Now, me, I'm a jump all in, immersive kind of a person. So I says, I'm taking a whole day. And of course, they suggest taking a little time. If you're standing in line, don't get your phone out. Don't give yourself that rush. Just be bored. Right. I kind of look at the dopamine detox. I called it forced boredom. So you had to force yourself to be bored. And what they suggest is that from that, you now build up desires to do things. Why? Because your brain hasn't been so inundated with this little dopamine hits. And you build up enough reserve, right? And then that helps your focus because you're going, hey, I've built up a strength to see something through. And it starts with, I saw through the whole day, the whole hour, however you did it, of not doing this thing that's pleasurable. I just did something that was boring. So what I did was I took the day and boy, you talk about hard. Oh my God. And I've been asking people, hey, you ever heard of this? And it's, no, I heard it. And they were like, I couldn't do that. And I was like, might be onto something, right? I couldn't do that. And it's why dopamine detox is so popular. The whole day, John, I took the whole day and they said a couple things you could do. You can walk. You can't read a book because that brings pleasure. You can write. That's it. You can kind of get out your thoughts. Man, I tell you, I was thinking about stuff that I hadn't thought about in years. Why? Had time. My mind had a time to rest. I sat kind of in on the love seat in my house, and I just had my pen and paper. I fell asleep, right? And I'm thinking, I'm not sleepy. I had 8 hours of sleep, but that's your brain detoxing, right? I didn't turn the TV on. I turned the phone totally off. Then I took a 2-hour walk because you could walk. Boring stuff. I didn't typically when I walk, I take my little recorder and I start talking. I didn't do any of that. All kinds of thoughts coming because now there was room. So as an entrepreneur, you're going to have some things that you struggle with. And if it's a lot of times it's focus and the belief that you don't have time to get stuff done. Well, you might have time, but do you have the attention? Do you have the focus to get one thing done so you can get to the next? So let me tell you the results of this dopamine detox. I slept like I could not believe. I must have slept 10 hours total. 2 hours here, did my walk, wrote in my, my journal just like crazy. We've got a journal that you put together. Beautiful. That's an opportunity. You journal, you write, you just release. And the next day I was fired up for the projects that I had in front of me. I hadn't been fired up in a while because so many things are in front of you that you kind of go, yeah. I'm not excited. But by detoxing, by pulling away, by intermittent fasting, if you will, intermittent fast for your brain, right?
Mm-hmm.
That helped reset and got me back focused, back fired up, right? And I says, wait a minute, if we can do this kind of thing as an entrepreneur in a personal way, we can suggest something to other folks, right? What is it that you're out there struggling with right now?
Mm.
Time, right? Kids are home. Pandemic's got everybody home, depending on when you're hearing this, right? You're frazzled. Loved ones driving you nuts because they're home too. Money, income, whatever it is. Sometimes we need to take a detox, get our focus back, get our fire back, right? Stella's out there, get your groove back, whatever it is, right? It's the same concept. I was listening as I was doing some research on this, some stuff from Seth Godin popped up, and he says when he was creating Alt MBA, now Alt MBA is going on to make millions and millions of dollars, right? He said he went to the desert and got extremely bored. That was the whole concept, right? Now he didn't create, the idea behind the dopamine detox, but that's what that was about, right? Haven't you heard that people go and take themselves away from all of the hits of dopamine, the responsibilities, and they come back with ideas? Steve Jobs, when he left the company, he was able to, what he called it, I think he called it his time in the wilderness, if you will. He went out and created Pixar. He went out and created things, and then they ended up being bought for billions of dollars. Right? His time away from the company was the best thing that happened to him, even though he got kicked out of it. It was time away. So my struggle was the focus part of things. And then I'm starting to get that muscle back in shape. Right? And this is what the guy talked about on YouTube. He says, look, it's like you go to the gym. You don't lift the whole gym that day. You do a little bit, get stronger. Get sore, get stronger. Come back, get sore, get stronger. Next thing you know, you can lift heavier. You have to do the same thing with your focus. And for me, that struggle had been the focus part of it. And then now I'm saying, who do I have to bring onto my team to get these projects done? And literally stuff is just dropping in my head. I'm like, wait a minute. Why don't I outsource this whole thing and I come in and advise it? It's like, whereas before it was like, no, I'm going to start it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to test it. I'm going to do everything. You don't have enough heads for all those hats. Yep. That's what it was for me.
So as we wrap up, what is the one takeaway? As we know that, you presented a lot of information. Our listeners are going to get off here. They're going to go about the rest of their day. What is the one thing that is critical that an entrepreneur, an emerging entrepreneur, should take away and cherish?
I think it's going to be when it comes to your idea, some of the things that you have to think about before you start your business is really, is there enough of you to achieve that outcome? And this is something that I have the entrepreneurs do. I says, tell me about your typical day. Walk me through your typical day. And I start listening to the entrepreneurs and I go, okay, I said 8 hours of sleep. Now you got 16 more. Walk me through those 16 hours. And what you'll find oftentimes is that you hear all of these things pulling them in all these directions. And then that one idea will never get started simply because they don't have time. They have time given away to other things. But those aren't the things that they've decided to do. So I would say, as a takeaway, ask yourself, is there enough of you to create this thing, to put it out into the marketplace? And if the answer is no, then you say to yourself, immediately assemble your team. Think about who should do this, that, and the other in your business. Who's going to go out there and validate the idea? Give it to somebody. Who's going to write the initial survey questions? Give it to somebody. This is before you even start, right? And then when you see that thing could work, then you decide, are all of these other things that I'm doing in the 16 hours that I have outside of the sleep, maybe you're sleeping 6.5, 7, right? Are all of these other things as important as this one thing? And if they are, you might not never start. That might be the most important thing you can decide. I'm not doing this.
Hmm.
And then be okay with that. I'm going to work. I'm going to retire. And that's it. That might be the most important thing. That's what I would strongly recommend.
Wow. Wow. Well, audience, you've heard it. You've heard it from the mouths of Mr. Randy Outerbridge. Some very valuable information that we took in today about what you should know before you start a business. And Randy, this has been a great change and opportunity. Thank you very much for letting me ask you some questions today, and this you've given me some things to take away with as well. So I truly appreciate that.
You're most welcome. This is this is why we put this together. This is why we says let's come together and mastermind.
Mhm.
Right now we do it. This is the jealous moment, right? We do it for ourselves because we get stuff from each other. Right? When I turn things around, being on the other side of the ask, right? Almost anticipating the question, but not running out too much ahead, right? This is why when we did this, it was like, man, here we're going to set it up this way, but when we switched it on you, that's for us so that we can get invigorated, so we can get some ideas dropping in from the other angle and some things to think about. So we hope that you guys, as you're listening in, have had an opportunity to go, got some takeaways, got some checkoffs. And of course, you guys can always get in touch with you. If you're seeing it on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, be a part of it, because we are rolling this stuff out as fast as we possibly can. If you're listening, take those takeaways, get those questions, get on our Calendly. I'll try to provide my Calendly link if you want to go and talk a little bit more, and then we will get you together. If you want to come on the show and we can mastermind on your business, hey, now that's something. Talking about getting some, wait a minute, you're getting some free advice, didn't cost you, just to maybe subscribe to the channel. Come on and do that, and we'd be more than happy to help you. So yeah, John,
Absolutely.
thanks a lot, man. I appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you, Randy.